So good morning, Vesna. Welcome back. For those of you that are watching or listening, my name is Joe McNamara. I'm the Director of Solutions Marketing here at AML RightSource. And joining me again today for another great conversation is Vesna McCreery. Although, Vesna, you're sporting a new title, which is definitely a main focus of today's conversation. So without giving away the secret, without letting the cat out of the bag per se, why don't you give us a little bit more information about kind of what you've been asked to do and certainly what's been taking up a lot of your time recently?
Well, good afternoon and good morning, good evening to depending on where people are watching. So I've been now with ML RightSource about 4.5 years, and I have been helping basically take the company out of the US and more broadly to the globe, into Europe, into Asia Pacific, and Australia. And we have achieved a lot. But the new role is about setting up an international advisory board in addition to our existing North America advisory board, which is run by John Byrne, a very well-known person in our industry. And we want to basically have help from our advisory board with our strategy and insight into the industry and its trends. A lot is changing. It's a very important thing to do. And we also want to show our clients that we are listening to them and to our, future clients as well.
Absolutely, right. And that's exciting. So, as the chair of the International Advisory Board, I think there's a couple key questions that certainly come up. And I think you touched on one of them being, from a domestic-based perspective, obviously John has really headed up our initial advisory board. It's super exciting to see, as AML RightSource continues to scale and grow globally,
Yeah.
that priority is not necessarily shifting, but it is scaling, right? And as
Yes.
you mentioned, it allows for, better interaction, better value add to our clients. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, are there specific areas that we're focused on or that we're excited about when it comes to delivering that value to our clients, especially in the European market or just more generally globally?
Well, I think that we certainly, when I joined, we were 1,700 people and we had about 11 locations. Nine of them were in North America and there were two new locations in Europe. Since then, we established 5 new locations in India. We have one in Malaysia. We're thinking of going into Australia local as well, possibly New Zealand. We have some things very small in Latin America as well. So we have grown exponentially to 7,000 people. And our advisory team of experts that deliver, proper consulting in financial crime has also grown and expanded in the capabilities. So this scaling is a combination of showcasing basically our capability that we've created, the physical capability of our expertise and people, the improved training for our staff, the much greater number of directors and managers who are overseeing our teams in delivery. But we also want to have advisors who are going to help us understand how we come across to them, where it is happening at the coalface and what is happening there. Because when I was working for the last probably 5-6 years in consulting, but before that, in banks and financial institutions, it is different thing that you see when you're at the coalface itself. So we definitely want that input, and we want to show that we're listening. We want to learn. There's always something to learn, and we want it to be fast. And I know that our CEO has expressed to me that he wants to make sure that this is not just a set of meetings where I sit and talk with people, but that he wants to hear what these clients and potential clients want to tell us. We're thinking about taking people from regulators, from existing clients, because they can give us the real pulse on what they're thinking about us right now in a more strategic way than just a one-to-one discussion on an issue. And we want them to hear what others are talking about in that environment, so it's kind of more rounded, and that we have that input, as I say, to the CEO, to our leadership, to our private equity firm, and that all trickles back into our management and the senior leadership, and then the rest of the firm, potentially including training and all aspects of what we do every day. So that is really where we're going with this.
Yeah, no doubt, right? And I think the term that comes to mind is all growth is not equal, meaning,
Yeah.
like you mentioned before, there's a geographic component, right? We've now got a footprint on just about every continent around the world.
Yes.
But there's also a nuance component too that you're mentioning as well. Whether it's having those in-depth kind of nuanced conversations with our clients, or certainly taking a look through a regulatory lens of a specific
Yes.
market. It's that as much as we'd like to wish that everything was kind of apples to apples, it's really not. On a day-to-day basis, things are constantly moving and changing. And so I think it's exciting in some parts, because it certainly gives our organization that opportunity to flex and dynamically mold to the needs of our clients, regardless of where they sit.
Yes.
But could not agree with you more, Vesna, in terms of ensuring that we've got the right voices in the space, having the right kinds of conversations, and essentially helping to lead and guide some of the bigger decisions around what we're going to do next. I,
Exactly.
outside of the summarization of what you just said, which you said it much better, there is a question in there, and that's really when you think about the makeup of
Yeah.
your advisory board or a board member. Obviously there's really no apples to apples. In some cases, you want a big eclectic mix or diversity within that board. But for you, what does that look like? What does that iteration of these international members look like?
So, in theory, I want to have somebody from a regulatory body, from an industry body, from a bank. I want to have representation from fintechs, crypto, payments industry. I want to have people from Australia because it's an important market for us, and New Zealand, and then also APAC. So we have Patricia in Singapore, and our senior business development and commercial team regularly visit there. We have clients in Hong Kong and Singapore and elsewhere in Asia Pacific, and we want to grow that. So I definitely want to have representation from that region. And then, of course, from Europe as well. I myself sit in London. I do travel a lot, but I do think it's important. Some of our biggest clients and most important clients are here. And we want to have representation from London, from the UK as a big market in Europe, and then from Europe itself. Now, that's a lot of people. So I'm going to have to probably think about where we can, how many people is productive to have in one meeting. And we're probably going to start initially with just a very small number of 3 to 4 people to begin with maybe quite a short term of maybe a year or two, and see how we go, and then grow from there. So because we want to make this very productive, it is not going to be an environment to just exchange thoughts and move on. It's going to be something that's going to feed directly into our firm and to what we do and how we do. We're going to listen to these guys, and it's going to be very important for us. So it will be an interesting mix of people for sure. I've already started talking to some of them, and it's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I was also thinking about before we started our session this morning, the combination, right? And when you and I were kind of talking about the concept of a productive and value add advisory board, I think you nailed it, right? When you said, really infusing those insights, getting almost that farmer's insurance approach. Hey, we know a few things because we've seen a few things, and getting those types of folks that are
Yeah.
both,
Yeah.
expert practitioners, but then
Yeah.
also, expert, operators, and getting them in the room together to have that conversation. I think any company would be aided from a value add perspective to have a group like that, especially across the board. It's not simply hey, how much expertise can we acquire and kind of
Yeah.
infuse. Although that's really important, I think there's something to be said too. As you mentioned, it's not quite a business development, but it is understanding the commercials
Yeah.
of where we sit and certainly how we operate within
Yeah.
different markets, within different spaces. So super exciting. Are there any specific goals that you're excited to kind of focus on first? I know we've kind of talked about some of them at high level, but if you were going to pull out your checklist, what's Vesna's checklist look like for the first iteration of this board?
So, I actually had a look, and some of the most amazing companies in this world have, and some of our clients too, have advisory boards. And so, advisory boards are different from the non-executive and, of course, from executive boards because they don't have any statutory obligations and rights, but they have been used by companies and in the banking industry it's quite well used, but then also Tesla, Toyota, Airbnb, quite an interesting array of companies use them use advisory boards for different purposes. Some want to have access to the client views. Others want to have expansion in a particular industry. Some want to have access to the kind of expertise that they cannot buy because maybe we are a very well developed and established consultancy in financial crime, but we are not yet a listed company. We are not to be competing with like Goldman Sachs or very large firms out there. So what expertise can we get from the advisory board that we couldn't buy otherwise? So those are the kind of things that I've seen very successfully used by these big brand names for all these various purposes. And so for me, it's going to be a combination of those things. What I want is to combine a little bit of that traditional view on the strategic oversight and the kind of traditional fixed way of doing things with a little bit more mission driven and simpler diversity, focusing on diversity of skills and on maybe more on innovation and on the values that we can provide, and also on branding for us because we're still establishing our brand in certain environments. So those are all the very important things that I'm going to focus on. I'm also going to want my advisory board to meet regularly with with our senior leadership, with the CEO, with the head of delivery, with various key people here, maybe help our training environment. Maybe we will connect with the North America board. John and I are actively talking about how and what we're going to do. There is a lot to be seen, and I don't want to cast it in stone too early. I'm very open to what it can be, but it certainly needs to be very dynamic and very alive and very connected to the real day-to-day work that we do.
If I was going to just clip that's where I would clip, the entire, essence of what this board is meant to be. But, could not have summarized that better. And I would say, selfishly being the guy that kind of oversees a lot of our branding and content, I'm looking forward to just having some new faces, right? Some folks that we can talk to,
Yeah.
that to your point, we can infuse some of that expertise into our thought leadership programming, and certainly deliver that not only to our existing clients, but hopefully our future ones too.
Absolutely.
So So Vesna, I think this is an exciting milestone for AML RightSource. Undoubtedly, I think it's one of those things that we knew was coming. It was just a matter of
Yes.
when, not if. Could not be more excited with the who. But in terms of final thoughts, anything else you'd like to leave our audience with as it relates to this board?
Well, I know that a number of us are excited about what's coming, having a lot of internal support, and I very much look forward to connecting also with and working together with my internal colleagues on all of this, and reaching out to a number of people that we know and we think are going to be able to contribute to us. I'm sure some of them are going to be too busy, or it's going to be tricky because I definitely want to have somebody from Australia and from Singapore and potentially even from the US and Europe, and the time zones, just the time zones, the mix is going to be really tricky. So bear with us while we develop this, but I think it's going to be one of the most dynamic advisory boards out there. So I welcome suggestions.
Well, and again, I think that truly speaks to the spirit of dynamic ability for this board. So, Vesna, again, congratulations on your appointment
Thank
as the
you.
chair of the International Advisory Board. And we really are. We're looking forward to seeing exactly what kind of impact you can have on AML RightSource.
Thank you very much.